Right, Richard, I'm just going to use your drawing as is, and I'm going to convert these strings to strings that I can use. And just to get a picture right, I like to use different colors. So I'm going to go to strings, info, sorry, just go back one, go to edit, sorry, and go to string attributes. Currently I've got my blue pen and thickness wide. I'm just going to make that a different color. It helps me to see where the strings are so that I can easily combine strings and work with them independently. Right, so I'll just use that pink string connected onto that one, make a connection there. So we go to strings, edit. I'll just use string combine with the meet tool, just connect those two to each other, and maybe I should do the same here. Right, so essentially I'm just creating all of these little bend points, and then I'll go to node move and just stick it onto that node there, and might as well connect it to tell it get the same elevation of the other string. So now they have the same elevations. Do it there as well. And then I'll say node add, and I'll add another node on this line. Sometimes you just have to find, there we go, and I'll connect onto that one there. I'll just tell it, in this case I want to pick up the ground in the triangles of project 1, so I'll say interpolate on project 1 and then I'll go node move again and pick up that one and connect to this one and tell it to get the same height of that string. There we go. So now I've got all these little lines connected to each other. I went to Google Earth to get my contours for that section there where the pipe is coming off the pump. It's more or less there. I just did that to have something proper for the pipe maker tutorial. Let's start up pipe maker, and I'm gonna stop the video here and continue in the next video. So let's call this section 1. Alright, so the strings are all drawn out. I started pipe maker, so there's pipe maker in the background. Back in model maker, I will now just go to freehand mode. I'm going to send my DTM, my model, terrain model, as well as my strings to pipe maker. Just before I do that, I want to make sure that in pipe maker my actual work mode is water. That's sort of the prerequisite for us. Then I want to go to my data, design defaults, and this is where you will set your general defaults when it receives a pipe. Pipe maker will apply these settings as your general settings starting off the pipeline. What is quite important here is your minimum cover. So at any point where there is a bend point, it will elevate it. In fact, if you tell it to go parallel to the ground, because it's a water pipe, it will add additional nodes, as it were, into the pipeline to make sure that it follows the contours properly. So that's quite an important setting right there. The rest I'll talk about as soon as we get into it. So I'll just say okay for now. Oh yes, and just remember your pipe reference file. This is something you can edit. It's for, in this case, main UPVC, and you can go insert your different diameters. So this is the pipe name, nominal diameter, and then you have your inside and outside diameter, and then you can set up your classes. That's so you can build a list. I'm just going to use what's here and see how far we get. Just save that file if you need to. You can even give it a new name if you like. I'm not going to bother with that right now. So you set your general pipe diameter and your pipe class. Now I like to do my pipeline sizing in Model Maker with the Area Maker program. I generally would use Pipe Maker just to do the design drawing, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. Let's go to OK. It's just moaning about the friction factor. So this is Hayes and Williams. I would probably use something like 140. If you go to the help file here, there is prescribed friction values. 140 would be sort of a medium pace friction for new and used pipes, so it's quite a nice friction value to use there. Alright, so let's go back to Model Maker. Another thing I want to do is, I didn't do it earlier, I'm going to go to my strings, just go to Info and just click on each segment, and let's call this section 1. I'm just going to copy this. That is section 2. This tells me that there are other strings connected to that one and should be updated basically. And 4. Right, so that's the picture I've got in Model Maker. As I said, rather size your whole line inside Model Maker. That's a whole different topic, by the way. So we would go to DTM to Pipe Maker, and that is done. So if you go to Pipe Maker, you'll see the outline sitting there. You won't see any contours in Pipe Maker. And then we would go to Strings to Pipe Maker. Right, so the whole pipeline laid out for us. I would now activate my first excuse me, my first segment, and now it just wants to apply my settings. Now we can talk about each one of these, but I would recommend you can read the help file there. It's quite simple. You just put your cursor on any one of these, it gives you information of the boxes. What you would want to look at is this bedding class. You have your different bedding classes, and that just defines the way that the pipe is placed, the type of bedding material, how it should be compacted, or what the granular bed or whatever bedding material is used. But the important part is to know how the volume would be excluded from the pipes. You'll see each bedding type is a little bit different. There's a bit of a different way that it approaches each. See, that one is just pipe laying on the ground. So it's a rigid pipe on class B bed. Right, so you can read up on all of that. Now bear in mind that the help file was also written for stormwater and sewers. So but if you read through all of this, you'll find what is applicable to water pipelines. Now the program itself is not a pipe sizing program. So there's a lot of manual inputs. It's not a very complicated advanced program. So I'm just for now gonna say okay. What it's happening now is it asks me how do I want to elevate the pipeline. So I'm gonna say just parallel to the ground, and I'm going to say create bend points at intervals of 10 or 20 meters or whatever you want to do. Alright, so there it just basically places the pipeline underground. Now I didn't name the manholes or the bend points, so let me just look at your model here. It seems, I just want to see what your elevations are doing. I'm pressing F5 and I'm just viewing your slopes. Okay, so it's going in that direction. Alright, so that is downhill, so we're pumping uphill. So our pump is in the other side. Okay, so that means the string was drawn from this side to that side. I actually want to flip that around. So what I'll do is I'll just go to pipe maker. It's actually good that that happens. I'd like to work uphill. Okay, so I'd like to set my pump on the other side, and to do that I have to change the direction of the whole string. So what will help me in Model Maker is if I just go to Info, Display, and put the name on the start of the string. You can see the name written there, section 1, so I'm just going to flip that around. And there's a button here called Indicate Start, and you just click on the string and it flips it around. Alright, now the start's on that side. Let's just check all of them. Yeah, that seems to be usable. And go back to Pipe Maker and just clean this all out. Clear and new. Right, so I go back to Model Maker and just send that again. DTM and strings. Maybe I was too quick for the strings. Let's go back. Let's try it again. Taking a bit longer this time, so it's thinking. Okay. Oh, I don't know what happened there. Let's just restart Pipe Maker. Okay, just make sure it's set to water. Good. And DTM go and strings go. Go to Pipe Maker. There we have it. Okay, so I'm gonna stop this video here. Make it section end of section number 2. Right, so the basis of this tutorial would be just to get you to get to know Pipe Maker a little bit better. I'm going to use a short line, just a section going from the pump to the next line, and I want to just bring the basic concepts across. So you right click, activate section, and just click on the section you want to view. Okay, because we haven't done any designs on it, it wants to apply a basic design, so we'll just say OK for that now. I always forgot about the friction. Let's just change that and place it in. Right, so now you can see I'm going uphill. Immediately you're going to say, well, I need to put in air valves. So if you go to Data, Design Defaults, you can see you can assign air valves to different patterns, or patterns to air valves. So you go to Edit, and you'll see there's a pattern name called air valve. Just make sure it is set to the available pattern. If I say OK, that associates the two. If I click Edit again, you won't see the association, but it has been applied. So then I'll just go to G valve for gate valve. So I'll say Edit, gate valve, and I'll do the last one, scour valve. Alright, so that's been applied, and now I need to go to my data, and you will basically go to fittings, and then it just gives me an option: must the low and high points be defined automatically? So we say yes, and then it automatically comes up and it shows you at which peg distance you have an air or scour valve scenario. We'll say, see, the type refers to to this section here. So type 0 is nothing defined, so 1 would be air valve. So I'm going to just put in a 1 there, 1 there, 1 and a 1. A scour valve is number 3. So I'll say 3, 3, 3, and 3. And then the base is where the pattern should be drawn or shown on the pipe. So 2 is top of pipe, 0 is invert level of pipe. So I'm not going to change it, I'm just going to leave it as is. And you'll see little markings everywhere where there's a low point or a high point. So you won't really see the drawings. You will see at the bottom of this graph, you will see the descriptions appearing, any position where that was applied. Furthermore, you will see you have your titles on your left hand side, and if there's something that falls outside of the design defaults, in other words going to data, design defaults, these grades here, so you have your minimum slope, maximum slope, minimum cover, velocity, minimum maximums, you can set that up, but it basically colors whatever is outside of the defaults in red, and you change your design until you get rid of the red. Now for grades it's not that important on water pipelines, but on sewage and stormwater that is important. So some people on water decide that no, they'll switch it off. Currently the static head, well, going into negative, so we have to add some pressure at our pump, and maybe even more pressure to come later on when we do the rest of the pipeline. This is a nice short line just to get you through the basics. There's no flow at the moment because we haven't defined any draw-offs. The pipe description, that's just what's needed for the contractor to know what to build. So you can see it's a 160 diameter class 12 pipe all the way through. And then there's some reference points, which could be any name. I'll talk about that in a moment. And your actual slope distances of all your pipes. So if you I could have used 12 meters. So in South Africa we buy our PVC pipes in 6 meter length, so 12 meters or 24 would have been a good length to use for the positioning of nodes. Now this design can be tweaked. If I go to data pipe design, you can see here on each change interval I have an invert level, and if I change these values I'm actually changing the design. I can put in some head there. Let's say I want to add, make it 5 meters, and we're not drawing off any water at this moment. Maybe the last node we're drawing off how many pivots are going to run at the same time. Let's say 60 liters per second for now, and say okay. Just to recalculate everything, and then we go to our plot parameters, and this is where you switch stuff on and off. So if you want to see your dynamic head and your static head, if you have bedding material, you can this is your bend information. That's those little values that are written there to say if it's a vertical bend or a horizontal bend, and by how much in degrees. Alright, so it will tell us for construction purposes that this pipeline is going to bend upwards or downwards or to the left or to the right. The pipe grades, service, if you have service crossings, pipelines crossing your pipeline, they could have just been other strings with names called pipeline or power line or telephone cable or whatever. If it's strings and they're named like that, they will appear on this drawing, and you can set how they should be marked or where. Right, so I'm not going to go into too much depth there. The titles on the left, you set it here, long section titles. So if I, for instance, don't want to see the grade, I can just switch it off and say okay. So now the grade is removed. Okay, so you can see my dynamic head is actually really messing with me right there. My static head's not good enough. Probably some friction losses happening. So I'll go back to my design. Maybe add another 5 meters into that. Looks a little bit better, but not good enough. So the draw off is 60 liters per second. So let's make that 30. See what happens. Okay, so the graph obviously adjusts itself. Right, and you can play around with this till you're happy. If you're going to start playing with pipe diameters, this is how it's done. You go to data, pipe design, and you could say from node 1 to 34, so we'll say change range. We want to change the pipe diameter from 1 to 34 to maybe a 250 mil pipe and say OK, and recalculates the whole design. So there my friction is also improved. Let's go back to our head. Let's make that 10 again. Okay, so that's a little bit better. Right, now obviously if you've done a hydraulic design with Area Maker in Model Maker, you will have much better control over your pipe diameters, and you will have to just mimic those diameters. Now we're in the process of trying to implement a automated conversion from irrigation pipes to a string that can be used in Pipe Maker, so that you don't have to go and fiddle and change the pipe diameters. It could all be automated. I'm still working on the guys to develop that for us, but it is a slow process. They need some more convincing, because at present we're only doing this for you. I'm trying to please you, so I'll work hard and see if we can get it there. Right, so at the bottom of the screen you can do various things. Let's say I want to do a alignment of a certain grade, so you can put in a grade value and it will grade the whole pipe according to this. Now, that's not what I want to do right now. I actually want to do a line. Sorry, that's not what I want either. I think that's the one I'm wanting. Yeah. So if I press this grade button, you can put in a grade, or you can pick 2 points on the screen. Let's say I want to grade between those 2 points like that, and all the nodes will be readjusted according to that grade. Now again, this is a water pipeline, so you probably won't do that. So to rectify that, I just said that because we're using this for stormwater and sewage, wastewater as well. So that's some of the tools, but there's a lot of tool sets down here. You can pick up any position to tell you information about that position. Alright, let's just go and fix that which I've just broken. So go to pipe design, and I do this way, going to pipe design and then design defaults, and if I say OK, now it reapplies that whole logic, like starting from the very first position. Let's make this 12-meter intervals and recalculate everything. Alright, go to my data, just check our fittings, make sure everything is still set up. You can actually clear that and rerun that as well. So we go to data, fittings, Okay, there's a few more. Right, so I'm just gonna put these in quickly so that you get the idea of the final result. So the whole idea of PipeMaker is to create a construction drawing that you can then give out, and the pipeline can be built by contractors. Right, so you won't see patterns, but they are allocated and set up properly. And just on that point, if you go to your Windows Explorer under PipeMaker, under your .mm systems folder, in your settings folder there should be pattern files, scour valve, G valve, air valve. Make sure that those patterns are also in your systems pat data folder. They should be in this same folder. Now this is another thing we're working on at the moment, where you can just say send to Model Maker, and the CAD section that you've just drawn and worked on will be put into Model Maker automatically. The developers told me they will work on that, but for now we have to do it manually. So you would just go to Output, to Model Maker CAD, choose your paper size, long section. Your scale dictates pretty much if it will fit onto one sheet or many sheets, but you can split it up. So there's a lot of settings and stuff that you can put on the sheet or on the section. You just have to give it a name. I'm just going to call this Richard 1. And then I'm going to go to Model Maker, and I'm going to say File, Open, and I'm going to go to KCD. There's my Richard1.kcd, and I'm going to tick this tick box and add to the existing CAD that's there, and just go freehand and just put it in there. Switch on the CAD and just zoom into that. Let's zoom right into those valve positions, so you can see there's an air valve and there's a scour valve, and those are the patterns that I just talked about. Right, and you can also create your own patterns. I actually wrote an article on patterns and how to work with patterns. Let's just show that to you quickly. So you would go to my website, MMS Design, go to Support, and go to Tutorials. So in here there should be one for creating patterns. There we are, create your own CAD patterns. You can download that tutorial, should help you a lot. Right, so that's the end of section number 3. Right, so the final step in this process would be to calculate some volumes. So to do that, obviously your whole design should be done. Your diameter should be applied. You can work with your static head and your dynamic head, determine your draw off. You do all of that under data pipe design. Right, so this is quite an important part of a design. Once that is done, you go to calculations, go to quantities. And you can go through this slowly, but for now you can determine your excavation depth categories in linear meter or in volumes cubes. And as soon as you do that, we have 2 standards in South Africa. I don't know if Colter is international or not, but SABS is definitely South African. That's the South African Bureau of Standards. And then you can go to your depth option and you can say I want to price this thing in half meter or 1 meter or 200 mil intervals, and I know that the pipe laying or pipe construction companies charge differently for different depth categories in placing those pipes. You will also see, if you go to your data design defaults, there's a trench width option here, and where you can have three different options. Width defined by a pipe diameter range. So this is what it looks like. So you can say from 0 to 700 mils in diameter. There should be a trench 300 mils each side of the pipe. Or you can work in a depth range, or you can work with a fixed width. Right. So it's just different ways to define your trenching. And then the topic on Colto or SABS 1200. Just go in there quickly. If we click help here, it's quite useful. You click on that. It explains how the excavation depth categories works. Right. So you can read through this slowly. It's actually quite self-explanatory. Right, but once you're done, obviously you can just hit OK and it will come out with a report. Now in this case, it's all zeros, which is not the desired result. So I just have to find out what's going on in here now. Okay. Generally, that would give you your volumes. Let me just look at my data design defaults. I'm missing something very elementary, or there's a bug. If it's a bug, it will be fixed tomorrow. So I go back to plan view. Okay, it seems it's a matter of using the same node description, so I'm just going to change that quickly. I'm just going to call this PI2. Right, so we go to quantities. So don't call your manholes the same name. Keep it unique. Right, so there we have a nice volume happening, and you can print a report and do your quotation accordingly. So if you want all of that to be done in one go, you have to start in Model Maker where the whole string is one long string. Obviously you cannot have branches off the pipeline, so if you want to do it from the start to the end, you have to literally have one string all the way through. Right, so that should get you started. I think it's enough information for now. If you have more questions, please do contact me and I'll see where I can answer it as good as I can. And once again, thank you for watching, and thanks for being patient with me. It's been a rough month with all the specials happening. The people are keeping me crazy busy. But I'll talk to you again. Cheers.